Hej och hjärtligt välkomna till Investerarbrevets Investerarafton special. Idag har vi nöjet att presentera 2 investeringsmöjligheter för den som har siktet inställt på framtiden. Båda bolagen hittas på den kanadensiska börsen och ett är noterat även i USA och det andra är noterat på Avanza. Eftersom dagens bolag är engelskspråkiga kommer presentationen nu att fortsätta på engelska. Hello and welcome, and if you tune in to Investerarafton special from Canada, well, I wish you a pleasant good morning. As always, if you watch live, you can interact with the management, this by asking your question in the live chat. You'll be advised to put forward your question during respective presentation, and that's in order for me to be able to moderate the question to the company in question. We will address the questions at the end of every presentation, and you can use English or Swedish in the chat line. This broadcast is a cooperation between Investerarabrevet.se, Direkt Studios, and Scandinavian Alliance and the company presenting. Scandinavian Alliance is a full-service company expert and as such can connect any company with investors in Scandinavia. With that under our belt, it's a great pleasure to introduce our first speaker in today's theme, which is opportunities in the frontier market, I would say. And our first company is 9 Miles Metals with deposits of copper, lead, zinc, and silver and gold. And here to walk us through the prospects and the potential is the CEO, Patrick Kruczak. Patrick, hello, how are you?
Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Well, Patrick, an interesting prospect in an interesting area. So please, the scene is yours. Take it away.
Thank you for having me. I am the CEO of 9 Mile Metals. We are a public Canadian junior exploration company. We focus primarily on critical minerals exploration, which as you can see is copper, zinc, lead, silver, and gold. It is what we call critical minerals here in Canada now. The government has given the designation. I think everybody understands with the EV evolution that's happening. Our stock symbol is 9 on the Canadian Stock Exchange, in the United States, VMSXF, and in Frankfurt, KQ9. Just highlight our company a little bit here. We are operating in the Bathurst mining camp in New Brunswick. It is a famous mining camp. It is host to 45 deposits of VMS, which is considered volcanic massive sulfides, which is your copper, zinc, lead, silver, and gold. Very economic and very large deposits. Of the 45 deposits, there is over 25 deposits over 1 million tons. We have 4 projects, high priority projects in the Bathurst mining camp, and I will just get to those shortly. So as in Europe, the Canadian government has designated these minerals of great importance. We look at them more not as critical minerals, but as essential minerals, because not only for the new technology where you need copper for your car batteries and your car wiring, and it's also base metals. So for apartment buildings and infrastructure considered old technology, it's very, very important. And as you can see, the importance of copper going forward. And I think I don't have to explain to everybody the whole electric car revolution and new technology and new energy. So this is New Brunswick, Canada. That is where we're located. Our projects are located in the Bathurst mining camp. It is a historic camp. It is host to, as I'd mentioned, 45 deposits. The largest and most famous is the Brunswick number 12, which is 336 million tons. And just a note, it is the largest, third largest mining camp in the world. And it hosted the largest zinc deposit, which was the Bathurst 12. We do have full year access. We do have deep water ports, rail infrastructure. As I said, it's a historic, very important. These are our 4 projects. Our flagship project is 9 Mile Brook, California Lake, Canoe Landing, and our newly acquired Wedge project. We total about 121 square kilometers, and we believe we have the most prospective part of the camp for exploration, and I'll quickly get to that. This is our geographic footprint, 9 Mile Brook VMS, Canoe Landing Lake, California Lake, and Wedge. The Wedge was a historic mine. It mined about 1.5 million tons of VMS in the past, and we believe it's not finished. And the Canoe Landing Lake deposit right there is an existing deposit of 22.8 million tons. So we believe we are in the best part of the camp. As you can see with the orange Spruce Lake Formation, it is very folded and twisted. This is complex, but we like complex. That's where we believe a lot of the mineralization will occur and has yet to be discovered. And then I will just quickly go to our assays here. We drilled 9 Mile Brook last year, and it was the highest grade ever recorded in the Bathurst mining camp. And as you can see from these, and it is in everybody's presentation, up to 10% copper over 15 meters. That is very special. And as you can see, the other holes, 10% copper over 15 meters is like 1% copper over 150 meters. This is very, very high grade, and there's nothing like it in the camp. The average return assay in the Bathurst mining camp is about 0.5% copper, about 10% lead zinc, about 1 ounce or 30 grams silver, and about 0.25 grams per ton gold. And as you can see from this, our very special lens, as we call it, is exceptional. So we had also drilled California Lake in the fall of last year, and we did discover a new VMS system there. So you can go back and over 18.5 meters roughly. But what's important here is we're showing that all of our projects are very prospective, and as we're finding VMS systems, now our fun work starts to zone in on the actual deposit, the source of these VMS occurrences. So primarily, this is what makes us special, what we believe. So we have used new technology in the last 2 years. We fly high definition UAV drone technology that's proprietary and utilizes, it can show us 3D subsurface modeling up to 1 kilometer in depth. And that's primarily a big part of why we've had such success in the Bathurst mining camp. About every 20 years, there's a breakthrough in geophysical technology that results in a rash of new discoveries, because obviously all the easy deposits and what we call outcrop is where the mineralization is showing out on the surface of the ground. The Bathurst mining camp, as productive as it is, only has 1% outcrop. So that has all been found back in the 1950s. All the new exploration is complex. Over 470 million years of folding and twisting and thrust faulting has really made this quite convoluted underground. This is really helping us with our exploration efforts. And as you can see from our success in our drill programs, we have hit VMS mineralization. And what's very, very special here with our technology is the artificial intelligence partnership and the algorithms that we use to reprocess all past data, but also new data and machine learning going forward for where we should be looking next. So that is very, very special and what sets us apart, we believe. And here's some pictures of our drone. We can fly. The nice thing with this technology, rather than using a helicopter, this is non-invasive. It doesn't hurt the environment. We can get to within 10 meters of the surface, and it has anti-avoidance collision, so treetops, so on, and of course, we don't even need a permit for this. This is special. It allows us to fly this drone 25 meters in spacing, so it creates a grid for us and gives us a high definition subsurface model that we believe and has really helped us find success in our last 2 programs. This a little bit with our artificial intelligence modeling that looks at all historic occurrences, soil samples, any type of geophysical and physical information we put into our machine learning process and target process, and it'll come out and give us some higher perspective targeting in collaboration with our geophysical technology. So we believe that the 2 processes is leading edge, and there's not a lot of companies doing it, and we are, and we're really having success, as you can see with our assay results. We're in the middle of a drill program right now at 9 Mile Brook, looking for the secondary lens or source deposit, and we are about halfway through that right now. There's our share structure, and you can see the insider and key stakeholder ownership. That is very important to know that management is aligned with shareholders' interests. We have a very strong management team. Charles Millette, President and Chairman, myself as CEO and Director, Gary Lomana, 20-30 years, VP Exploration around the world, independent board members and technical committee. So I'd like to open it up for questioning. I think that's where we will get a little bit more information than our corporate presentation, but I am open to field any questions from anyone.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Patrick. I have a couple of questions here, and there are a couple coming in here. But first and foremost, as I understand that this is, I shouldn't use the word a crowded area, but it's a well-known area. So how did you get hold of these deposits? And are there any competitors? Are you bidding for more deposits, or are these the ones that you're going to explore? So 3 questions in one.
Sure. No, absolutely. So the Bathurst Mining Camp is obviously being a mature camp and having all the logging roads, deep water ports, all the infrastructure has been there since the 1950s, which is great because our social footprint and our physical footprint is very, very small. We have acquired these projects from Fiddlehead Mining, and because everything is staked and everything's owned and nothing is available, you have to acquire them from prospectors or from other companies, and that's what we've done to build this portfolio. But we're concentrated in that one folded part of the camp because that is underexplored, and I believe the complexity is the specialness of it, right? Because it is hard, and until this technology came, a lot of companies had come in and drilled 50-meter holes, but and had no success. But as you can see, our technology has shown our success to the point where we actually have drilled the highest grade ever recorded in the camp. Going forward, we are always looking for growth by acquisition if it makes sense for our company and our shareholder value. So I wouldn't say no to that. But again, we're very prudent and very fiduciary with our company.
Well, thank you for that. And if I may just follow up there and obviously expose my ignorance in the area, but I believe that you on one slide have mentioned that it's important to be adjacent to a famous mine. And now I'm exposing my ignorance here for everyone to see here. But if you find copper, do you as a rule find zinc and or any other metal adjacent to it?
In the Bathurst Mining Camp, the way it evolved and the way it was created 470 million years ago, underwater, there were these little small vents or black smokers. You may have seen them on the internet around the world. I think they're in the Philippine area right now. But underwater, these volcanic smokers were spitting out lead, zinc, silver, copper, and gold underwater, and they were forming. And I'm not a geologist, so bear with me. So it was forming into these blocks of deposits. But then over the 400 million years, the tectonic shifts and the folding and the thrust faulting and all this, they got broken. Okay, so why it's so difficult now is when they were horizontal, they are now roughly vertical. So they're very hard to find because the footprint obviously is 500 meters at surface, but goes down as the Brunswick number 12 was, it almost went down 2 miles. So they're very, very large deposits, and sometimes they break up into a series of lenses. So what we have at the 9 Mile Brook is the very first lens, and it's broken at 15 meters and very, very high grade. And why that is because it's so close to the original vent. The pieces do not travel far, and that's what we're looking for now is the multiple pieces, almost like a string of pearls or clusters, or the actual source deposit. That is the traditional VMS model in the Bathurst mining camp. If you find copper, you find lead, zinc, silver, and gold. They are all together. And as you can see, there's about 95 occurrences in the camp in our presentation, 45 deposits. And some of these are large, 25 million tons, 70 million tons, 300 million tons, like they are very, very large. So where we are is the most complex, which is why it hasn't been discovered, but it's also most complex, and we believe our technology will give us the edge there. And obviously we have found 2 systems on our property. The wedge deposit we bought because we also believe our technology goes to older deposits and proves they're deeper, because they only drilled 274 meters at that deposit. There's still 500,000 tons left there. We believe it's larger, and that's only the first of a series of them on that project. So we're very due diligent. It takes us quite some time to do our technical evaluation before we do acquire a project for our shareholder portfolio. So we believe, and we will be drilling that very shortly. We have already press released that. So we are very excited. That would be the third of the fourth 4 projects.
That's the answer to the question. It's important to be around the famous ore because you can literally strike gold.
No pun intended, yes.
Thing here,
Sure.
you mentioned that the Canadian government recognized the importance of critical minerals technology, and we can hear that every now and then. But what does that really mean for you as a company, and what would it mean for the investor? Is this support or is it something else?
Yeah, it's a change in the in government policy. I think you can see all over the world that geopolitical issues and just acquiring these critical minerals going forward and how important they're going to be for countries and their economy and for their social footprint and their green energy and everything, you know, not just electric cars, you know, because VMS, obviously the copper, but zinc is used for batteries, and silver for solar panels, and you know, it's not just lithium and copper, it is for all technology. And I just I was at the famous PDAC conference in Toronto last month, and I was on a panel. It's on our website. Viewers are welcome to go there and watch it. It was on critical minerals, and there's 4 companies. And you know, it's a race right now for countries to secure their sovereign minerals going forward. And but we have, you know, it's hard to say we will be 100% electric in, call it 10 years, when we can't produce enough copper, we don't have enough lead, zinc, we're utilizing everything. And right now, countries around the world are also nationalizing and protecting their critical minerals. And at the same time, ours, our deposit style is also considered base metals. The zinc you need for galvanizing and steel and all these different things and wind farms and obviously silver and gold. But we're very well positioned as a company and the style of deposit because we have the critical mineral status, which is very lucrative for us because we're mining 5 elements, not just one. We have gold as a hedge because obviously the price of gold and that's not a critical mineral, but the others are. And these are large deposits when they are discovered. So, going forward, we couldn't be in a better position. We're in a great jurisdiction of Canada. We're in a great province of New Brunswick in a historic mining community. So we do have the workforce, we have the government Department of Energy and Mines, and we have the support from everybody and even the community. And we have a great relationship with the community, obviously, being in place for over 50, 60 years. So, we couldn't believe that the opportunity going forward is going to be hopefully filled with success. But there is a big support from the Canadian government with tax incentives and research and development and something to accelerate exploration, obviously. And the big difference between us and some of these other lithium and rare earths are all up north in the Arctic and Canada and very remote areas. Obviously, we're not. We're on the Atlantic Ocean. We're in the province of New Brunswick with full year access, with roads and logging roads. And like I said before, we're very environmentally conscious. When we do drill, we use small track-mounted rigs that we don't have to cut roads. We don't have to cut trees. We just go along the ATV and skidoo trails. It's that small. And we obviously, a lot of times we don't even need permits to trim branches. So we're very conscious of our social and environmental footprint, and the government's actually using us as a role model in that sphere. And back to our technology, it is not invasive, right? It's drone technology. We are no longer trenching and getting bulldozers and making these pits and so on. We can use our drone technology with our algorithms and AI to do what took 5 years and very invasive into 12 to 18 months drill targets. And for our shareholders, that's very important because we're no longer taking 5 years and spending all the shareholder money on exploring the whole property, as opposed to flying our technologies. The first thing we do and identify our targets, then we only explore and spend money on those targets. So we accelerate the time. It's economic exploration, and we believe it gives us a much higher rate of return. And obviously you can see that with our drill results.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. I was going to, that's a good segue for next questions regarding EarthX and Windfall Geotech. If I understood you correctly, you have a partnership. So can I just ask, why a partnership and not a regular customer-user relationship? What's the genius behind that?
Well, EarthX is, we've known EarthX for several years. They're leading this technology and development, and Daniel Card, the head RGO and PGO and president, founder of that company, is one of the leading experts in this field all over the world. This technology used all over the world. They believe, we've been working together for quite some time, and they believe in our exploration model. We believe that they're a great partner for us, to the point where Daniel Card and EarthX are actually on our technical board. We have a vested interest for success together, and the same with Windfall Geotech. That's even a newer relationship because artificial intelligence, and we use it to de-risk our projects for our shareholders, right, and our portfolio. Anything we can do as a management team and a company to increase results, but de-risk exploration dollars that aren't successful, and increase time, because obviously with critical minerals there is a acceleration component now requirement. But with Windfall, they're actually going back and historically looking at all the data and giving us targets. EarthEX is doing the same with reprocessing the old data with their algorithms, but then going forward, they're using their new technology, which is the UAV drone with the magnetometer and their algorithms going forward, which is incredible. You should look at our website. And then same with the machine learning going forward with Windfall. They're taking all the EarthEX data, new data, and our drilling and our logs and machine learning and predicting where we should go on our next project. And what we want to do is have where all these correlate and overlay with the same targets. That's a major priority, right? So we do it as a de-risk. We do it as we're very tech-centric and leading edge ourselves, and doing this for increased success and being prudent with our shareholder capital. And I think it's already shown successes, obviously, right?
Your timeline here stretches to the end of 2023, and the basic question is, and then what?
Well, we are an exploration company, so we're, like I said earlier, we're always looking to acquire and increase our portfolio. You know, we have, obviously we drilled and we've press released that, but we have so many targets on our projects. We have 121 square kilometers, and we, you know, just take 9 Mile Brook project as an example. We have so many targets there. You know, we have years worth of opportunities here with that land package, and we pretty much, if you go back and look at those in maps in the presentation, or even better on our website, you'll see the entire camp and where we are located. We pretty much have that whole synform, we call it the saddle, down there at the bottom of the camp. And that is the high priority area and under-discovered in the camp because it is complex, but we believe our technology has broken through that.
So what will be the next milestone? What shall we in the market be looking for?
Well, right now we are in a drill program, our second drill program on the 9 Mile Brook property, trying to, for the next stage, which is looking for the second lens in that series of lenses from the broken deposit, or the actual main chamber or vent as well. We are already right now creating all of our reprocessed data for California Lake and Canoe Landing Lake. And also, I think we press released already that we are very shortly going to be introducing our drill program to the Wedge property. And that is the existing deposit, but we believe it's much bigger and in a series, and we can't wait to share that information. So there's lots of news coming forward. We're very active. We're 12 months of the year. We do not just do work for 1 month, like some of the other companies that have a remote location. We are fully accessible, and we are funded for our exploration program, and we are looking very forward to having a full program. The snow is just melting now, so we have about 3 weeks where it's a little muddy with the runoff that they have to stop, but and then we'll pick back up at the end of April, and we'll be going right through to December.
Excellent. Well, Patrick, extremely enlightening and interesting, and it's a fascinating combination with using AI, modern technology, legislations in your favor, I would say, and the demand is still there. So it should be very interesting to follow 9 Mile Metal. And so I thank you, and not that you seem to need it, but I would say good luck anyway, and thank you.
Thank you. Well, it is Mother Nature, so we still need a little bit of luck. You can send that too. But I do invite everyone to visit our website. It's a nice interactive site, www.9milemetals.com. And please follow us on our, we do like to share as much news, and we do field messages, emails, so on from investors and just interested parties. And there are our follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and so on. We love to share news and show our successes and accolades as we're very, very busy, but we do like to let sure everybody knows we do think of them.
Information is key to get the market to like you. So thank you for that, Patrick, and as I said, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Och då tar vi en kort paus när vi ska koppla upp oss till vårt nästa bolag, också det från Kanada. Så stay tuned. Ja, välkomna tillbaka och eftersom vårt nästa bolag också är från Kanada så kommer vi att fortsätta på engelska. Our next company, Pond Technology, transform industrial emission into industrial value whilst reducing the carbon footprint. Via länk, Grant Smith, the CEO of Pond Technology, is with us to explain how this really is possible. Grant, how are you?
Well, thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. Grant, Pond Technology transform emissions to a commercial, environmental friendly product, and it seems too good to be true. So please go ahead and enlighten us and take us through the presentation.
Certainly. Well, thank you again for having us. It is a very interesting company, Pond Technologies. It was founded about 10 years ago, and we have fine-tuned the technology where we turn carbon into algae. Just got to get my next slide. So I'm just not able to move the slide. There we go. So this morning we'll go over the company overview. We'll do a highlight of the technology, discuss our pipeline, contracted projects. We'll go through our financials, ownership, and leadership, including our board of directors. So this is a great first slide. Pond Technology, again, a Canadian technology company where we've developed what I would call clean tech and ag tech technology. We take harmful CO2 emissions, and from the CO2, we break it down. The photosynthetic bioreactors that hold water filled with lights grow algae. So our market is nutraceutical, animal feed, agriculture, cleanup of oil sands, desalination, tailings ponds, and we have a recent biotech industry. So traditionally, carbon capture focuses on just putting CO2 into the ground. We would call that carbon capture sequestration. Our technology is carbon capture utilization. So you can see on our slide here, we take 2 tons of CO2 to grow 1 ton of algae. Within a warehouse or a building connected to a stack gas, we have several photobioreactors. They're completely contained and they can be controlled remotely using different software, programs, sensors, lights, and technology to grow that algae. And as you can see, the algae market compared to even 5 years ago is far greater in terms of awareness, in terms of demand, including feeding animals, and now feeding humans. As vegan protein has taken off in the last few years, there's been a great, what we'll call need from major, we'll call them CPGs here in the US and Canada. You may know them as Unilever, Nestle, and so on and so forth. They're all looking for sources of clean, green, sustainable protein. So again, what the platform does is we turn that CO2 into algae, and we have a photobioreactor patented system that does that. So I'll just highlight the next slide. And this is really the key, the market opportunity. Again, I highlighted the food, but there's also beverage and nutraceutical market. This is a very large market that's growing very, very fast. Category growth is 10 to 20% per year. And the price per ton for the algae for food and upwards into what I'll call the oil and the extracts and the antioxidants that you can pull out of algae can get up to $450,000, $500,000 a ton. Moving over to fish and animal feed, again, very, very large market. We're currently reducing arable land farming by supplying algae into animals' feed. So if you're putting 1 to 2% algae into an animal's feed, early studies are indicating that the animals are growing fuller, they're growing faster, they're more healthy, there's less disease in areas like salmon farms and outdoor farms. And salmon being a predator, trout, other fish, they actually need oil and protein. And when you break down algae, the algae market is high in oil and high in protein. So we just did a study with the National Resource Council of Canada, and the study clearly showed that feeding salmon algae at 20% of their diet showed superior growth and less disease in the salmon. So we feel that a company like Pond Technologies that can not only take CO2 out of the air by taking it out of emissions and then funneling that CO2 to grow algae, we're now a clean tech and an ag tech. So I just wanted to highlight a few other areas. The price per ton on animal feed can vary from $1,500 to $3,000, and these are US dollars. Now we had a major company reach out to us, and we discovered a biotech protein. So we had a biotech protein delivered to us on a petri dish, and no one could grow this at scale. Pond's technology was able to grow that protein at scale, and the protein was used in a COVID SARS spike 2 protein. And what that did was it was used in a reagent test kit to test for immunity levels of COVID and or if you had COVID. So this sort of biotech fell in our lap, where we're now using our technology to grow these special proteins in the biotech industry. And going back to the beginning, when Pond was first started, the market for algae probably 5 to 10 years ago was more in that, I'll call it the cleanup of oil sands, cleaning up of water, putting life back into topsoil, fertilizer, and so forth. So the bioremediation market is still large and growing, as a number of these companies have issues in regards to their, what I would call, I would call them cleaning up and putting the topsoil, life back into the topsoil, and recreating that boreal forest in the area of the Canadian oil sands, as an example. So we have basically 4 different segments and 4 different areas where we feel the species of algae are multi-billion-dollar industries. Our patents, we have 33 global active patents, and the patents are quite strategic. So we have patents obviously in the US, in the EU, in Europe, Taiwan, mainland China, and the Middle East and the Gulf states. And what that is that's significant that anyone using CO2 from an emission source to grow algae is infringing on our patents. So again, we have a patented system in terms of how we grow the algae and how we extract the algae. And this is a moat around the technology, is what we like to say. So here's a current, I'll call it old farming method. So you have the traditional outdoor method, where algae grows in these large outdoor, some people call them raceways. And these are prevalent in areas like China, India. There's one in Hawaii. They're quite climate dependent. Algae only grows from light, so therefore it grows only half of the day from sun. They require far more land, far more water, far more labor. They're climate dependent, but they're also vulnerable to contamination. So I'll give you an example. There was a volcanic ash eruption in Iceland a few years ago that landed in the outdoor ponds in Hawaii, and they ruined the crop. When they have monsoons in Southeast Asia, same problem. You have crops being wiped out. So we'll call that traditional farming. Moving over to the right, you have Pond's precision growth platform. The top right is a small plant that we own and operate in Vancouver, Canada. It's a red algae extract. It's called astaxanthin. And those tanks are filled with lights, sensors, and we control the algae growth. We have a number of customers where we sell that algae currently, which makes up part of our current revenue. And the bottom right picture is a picture of the world's largest photobioreactor. So that photobioreactor is connected to a cement factory. The company is our 3rd largest shareholder. They're called St. Mary's Cement. They're just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And we received all of our patents by using that photobioreactor hooked up to stack gas in order to grow algae and receive the patents. So we have proof of life. We have a large full-scale demonstration plant. We have a number of customers come to tour that facility. And the idea here is that that's a 22,000 liter tank. And I'll show you how the scalable, expandable technology of Pond works on the next slide. So this is a drawing of what we would call a demonstration plant, similar to what is built at St. Mary's. So what happens here is you have the initial seed tanks, you have what we'll call growth tanks, you have a laboratory, and on the bottom right, there's these 2 large tanks, PBR 201 and 202. Those are examples of what would be a starter plant. So some companies don't want to spend $20 million and build a plant right away. So we've come up with a solution as sort of a starter plant. And what they do here is they get the front end design of a plant built, and then those tanks, those 2 black tanks, they can be expanded at a later date. So it could be a year from now or 2 years from now, and then you might put on 25 of those tanks and really start scaling up and reducing your CO2. So this is what we've done with one of our customers, and we're working on with another. So the idea here is we've got an overview of the technology. You have everything you need to grow the algae. And then as you scale up, you can add on additional tanks. So it's a very nice scalable model. It takes a lot of the fear out of building, a large plant right off the bat. So commercial scale plants have about a 20% payback. So as an example, if you're growing that human algae at around, astaxanthin is 7,500 per kilo. You have things like spirulina, chlorella, a lot of these sort of superfoods that are going into a number of vegan proteins. This can be sold at 5 to 10,000. So what happens is you have a payback on your plant. So you've not only reduced your carbon, your CO2, but the algae is providing revenue to pay back the plant. So you become clean and green. So here is, again, a snapshot of sort of how it looks. And then this is the overview of our business. So Pond's integrated structure allows us to capitalize on multiple streams of revenue. So we have the 3 divisions. We have Pond Carbon, we have Pond Naturals, and as I mentioned, we have Pond Biotech, which is relatively new. So the Pond Carbon division is sort of the mother Pond Technologies company. We hold all of the patents, the technology, the engineering. It's all within Pond Carbon. And this is where we're going out looking for emitters. So this might be a natural gas company. This could be a coal-fired power plant. It could be a brewery, could be a distillery, could be an ethanol plant. And we're in talks with all of the above. So these companies have a source of carbon dioxide, and they have an emissions problem. They don't know what to do with it. Some of them are starting to put it in the ground, but when they hear about Pond, and our phone is ringing because they're hearing about Pond, what they're realizing is that they could put on a 20 to 25 to $30 million plant. We would take maybe 20,000 tons of CO2 and we would grow 10,000 tons of algae. So this is where we make significant revenue in the future. We get a license fee up front in Pond Carbon. We sell them the tanks, the lights, the proprietary equipment. We help build the plant, so we're making money as the plant's being built. And then in the end, we have a consulting service and a royalty on the algae that's made at around 3 to 5%. So then we have Pond Naturals. So Pond Naturals is our, we'll call, sales arm, because some of these emitters that come to us with this source of carbon they want to abate, they don't have a need for the algae. We have customers currently right now that we sell algae to, and we have a number of customers that have their hand up saying, if you grow 10,000 tons of spirulina, I would like that. So we're currently negotiating and working on contracts and getting LOIs from interested companies in the food, beverage, nutraceutical, and just the general industry for that algae. So that's where Pond Naturals can also get additional revenue in the sale of the algae. And again, lastly, with Pond Biotech, we're currently in talks with a number of pharmaceutical and biotech companies to potentially license the technology to grow these very difficult to grow proteins. We can grow them quite disruptively and easily in algae. And to talk a little further on that, the pharmaceuticals use a number of what I would call very expensive stainless steel tanks, and they're growing these special spike proteins in what they're simulating a Chinese hamster ovary. So this is how these proteins are grown. Very, very delicate, very difficult. The temperature can't change, very, very expensive to build these photobioreactors. We successfully grew in algae, in our small photobioreactors, that COVID SARS spike 2 protein. And we eat on purpose. We let the temperature vary, the pH vary, the turbidity vary, and we still grew these proteins at scale. So what we think we've come across is a very interesting platform where we can grow these proteins at scale very, very disruptively, probably 80, 85, 90% less in terms of what the pharmaceuticals are currently doing. So what we would most likely do is enter into a partnership with a pharmaceutical company and or sell a license to our technology. So we sell a license for $5, $10 million, and then we may get a royalty on every gram or kilogram of protein that they make in perpetuity. And that's really how the model works. So again, in Pond Carbon as well as Pond Biotech, we're receiving a license fee up front. We're selling them proprietary equipment, lights, tanks, sensors, and controls. And then we're getting a royalty in the algae produced off the back end. So a very nice repeat model that brings in consistent long-term revenue for Pond. So this is a great example of an AB Agri is a division of an animal ingredient division of a food company called Associated British Foods. They have done a number of years of work on what I would call vegan protein going into animals. So rather than just using corn and soy, which are low, the algae protein is 66% protein. So they first did all of their research. They looked at pea, rice, chia, hemp, flax, amaranth, all these alternative proteins that could be added to animal feed. They've done studies with a variety of universities, as has Pond. And again, with that recent study we just did, that salmon are growing, better, fuller, faster, more healthy with the algae added to their diet. So AB Agri kind of validated that. They first chose algae, then they chose pond. So we've signed an initial agreement with them to build what I showed you on the prior slide, that small sort of upfront demonstration plant. So that is currently underway. Our pipeline, it's too great to list, but we have signed an MOU with a company called SEM Energy in the UK. This is a company that has very, very interesting technology where they basically take waste and they create wealth. So whether it's waste to energy, waste to fertilizer, they're very, very great engineering firm, great minds, and they're very keen on helping the planet. So we have a number of partnership with companies similar to SEM Energy. We have a number of other companies that are in that same space where they're creating waste, they're taking anaerobic digesters and creating fertilizer and so on and so forth. But what Pond can do is we can take that last little bit of their operation and make them green. So what I mean by that is a lot of these companies, they still have some sort of CO2, whether it's through, methane's created through fermentation, whether it's through their operations, they still have some incineration or they have natural gas powering their plant. We tap into that CO2 and grow the algae. So an example might be up in Norway or up in Scotland or in Sweden, you have a number of fish farms. So we would take at the fish farm, at the operation, we would take their CO2 and on site, we could grow algae and then feed the specific species of algae that salmon, trout, or whatever it is that's being farmed requires and feed that back to the animal or back to the fish. So then you're creating what we call a circular economy. We have signed a deal with a major oil and gas company in Canada, and that company has a major problem in terms of what happens when you create oil from sand, use a lot of water, but a lot of the tailings and all the nasties end up in the water. So algae can help remove the salt and a number of the nasties out of the water, and then that leftover algae can go back into the land and put life into the topsoil by way of fertilizer replacement, or it's beneficial being blended with fertilizer. So again, it's a zero waste to landfill. You're creating CO2, you're taking CO2 out of the atmosphere and you're creating that. So that's where that works. So nutraceutical, again, we have a number of nutraceutical opportunities where we have what I would call nutraceutical and or feed and beverage companies, where what we have is the plants are being out for tender. So we've got companies that have a need for the algae, and what they have is they have a need for that algae in the areas of nutraceutical, food, beverage, and so on. So therefore, what we think is that we've got a very, very good opportunity in this area. So our full end year for 2021 has obviously been out, but our 2022 is not out yet. So what we will have is probably about the same. I think we're slightly higher. I've seen the early indication of the numbers. We get what I'll call lumpy quarters. We have a number of quarters where what we have is we have numbers where we get a quarter that comes in where we get maybe a license fee or we get a payment from a customer for a large amount of algae. Maybe they produce 2 times a year at their facility. So we get quarters that sort of go up and down. So we don't really look too worried. We're not too worried about our quarter. What we look is at improving. So over the past few years, you've seen sales increase. In 2022, our revenue is slightly up again. But I think next year is our inflection point. As we enter the 2023 and into 2024, we're now entering commercialization. So we're at that point where we're commercializing and we're moving into this area, what I would call, closing on plants. We're moving forward, bidding customers on plants. We're selling those demonstration plants and we're bidding on a number of large scale plants. So this is where we think we're at a point where we're ready to break out. So this is, again, algae is really become sexy in the last few years. It is something that we feel is on trend. We're seeing companies get more and more aware of it, and they're seeing how it can work. And as I mentioned, it's perfect for fish, perfect for animals, and now it's perfect for humans. We're seeing a massive explosion in vegan protein feeding the world. So we basically monetize a waste stream, and pollution is what we turn into food. So again, I highlighted this a little bit before, but a pond plant might only be 10 to 20,000 square feet. It just contains a lot of those large tanks. It's not a massive area. It's quite small in terms of its footprint. We recycle the water. So when we're growing algae in the tanks, we're taking algae out consistently. We take the algae out, but the water goes back in. The algae grows very, very fast. So we're reducing water, we're reducing so many areas, and obviously we're reducing two tons of CO2 to grow 1 ton of algae in that carbon sequestration model. So again, the growth area, plant-based proteins will be part of the solution. I think if you look at countries like Africa, we're part of the food security because we can actually grow a sustainable protein off of a waste stream. So once you're up and running at a plant, you could actually help countries like Africa with algae being micronutrition. So often there's a lot of countries that have food, but it's all carbohydrates and they lack protein. So I personally studied this in university, and I think this is where we can be part of that global solution to help feed the planet. So again, very, very good story, and this is where we are. So we currently have insiders holding a little bit higher now. We're probably closer to 30% of the company. Common shares outstanding is around 66 million. We have a few warrants that are expiring, so we don't feel that we have any warrant overhang. And we're in a pretty good spot. We're in a growth area. We're entering that inflection point, and we feel as a company we're very, very undervalued here at this point. So here's the management team within Ponds. You have myself as CEO. We have Thomas Masney, our CFO. Peter Howard's our Vice President of Projects and basically Director of Algae. Peter's a marine biologist, has a great background. Dan O'Connor is our COO. Dan comes from an ethanol background and a systems automation and control. So he's really the chief operator. He's the visionary behind fine-tuning the equipment. And Emilio's been here from the beginning in terms of building and creating the IP. We have a great board. Rob McLeese is our chairman. So Rob's an oil and gas expert. I have myself, I have Jacob Gamble, former Wall Street banker, so our capital markets expert. John Ferris, our PhD on staff for biotech. And Bill Asselstein is a director at St. Mary's Cement, which again is our third largest shareholder. So on purpose, we've created a board that has a number of areas that help us, fine tune and sort of break down each segment where we focus as a company. So I think that's a good wrap. I tried to keep it around 20 minutes, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Well, excellent, Grant. Thank you, and well done. Can I just try to put this into perspective here? So who do you compete with? Who do you meet in the doorway when you're marketing, if indeed you are marketing? Because you said the phone is ringing to you rather than the other way around.
Yeah, a lot of companies are finding us online. They're finding us. We do reach out. We have social media, etc. But a lot of companies we don't really have a lot of competitors. And again, I believe that's due to the IP. So not only is it the know-how and the knowledge, but we do have the patents, which really puts a moat around the technology, where we have 33 global patents. So again, anyone using CO2 connected to stack gas, using light and water to grow algae, infringe on the patent. So it's called a process patent. It's not a widget patent. It's not like making something. It's a process. So what happens is we don't really have a lot of competitors. We have companies that are trying to do things that are similar, mostly outdoor ponds, but we're seeing them actually calling us as well. So no word of a lie, companies that are doing well, they've created a brand, maybe they're growing in algae oil, they're growing in outdoor farms in Mexico, but they know they're having, sand in the ponds, they're having heavy temperature swings, cold, and high, that's global warming. So what's happening is they're calling company like us, like Pond, to say, hey, we might need you as a backup. We might need to buy some photobioreactors so that we always have some algae to sell when our outdoor farms don't work. So I think really we sort of mitigated the competitors.
Yeah, you have a little bit of the dilemma of being a first mover advantage in that respect, that you don't really have any competitors, so you're fighting in slightly against ignorance or the fact that you need to be more well known, or.
Correct. And that's why we created that scalable plant, So we've brought the price down. It's not a waste. It's basically a $4 to $5 million upfront facility, and then you just add on additional tanks when you want to abate more CO2. And the more you abate, the more you get a return on your investment. So we have the carbon credits, and I don't know if I mentioned that. So the host emitter keeps the carbon credits. So there's a combination for the emitter, for that ethanol factory, for that brewery, for that food company. They're going to say that they're carbon negative or carbon neutral. Maybe they have solar panels on the roof. So that's a perfect partner for Pond. We bolt onto their stack, we grow algae, maybe they use the algae vertically, and they are a brand new company. All of a sudden they are, they're sustainable, they're marketing that about their brand. And I think that's where we really start to gain momentum.
My next question is probably easier to ask than to have a proper reply on. But anyway, the genius behind it is to put it into perspective for your clients. So what would a production plant cost the brewer? If you don't have a number, maybe you could give us some sort of percentage of
Sure.
anything,
Yeah.
so we can put it in a perspective of why we would use
Sure.
this.
Certainly. So that brewery is churning out CO2, and they're going to need at some point to either pay to pollute quite heavily, especially here in the US and Canada. It's up to around $175 per ton by 2030. So if that brewery was making 10,000 tons of CO2, we could take nearly all of that CO2 and grow around 5,000 tons of algae. If we then sold that algae through Pond Naturals and helped that customer get a return on that algae, they would receive about $5 million a year in revenue. So if you did a $20 million plant in 5, 6, 7 years, you'd be paying back, because we're also getting very, very high margin on the algae, because again, it's quite effective in how we grow the algae, because we're growing it at scale and we're growing 24/7. So we're not like those outdoor farms that are growing only in the day. We're growing 24/7, and we're also growing the algae very, very quickly through the technology. So just to give you a number, yeah, a $20 million plant might produce anywhere from $5 to $10 million a year in algae. We'll just use 50% profit margin. So in 5 years, you've paid back the plant on a combination of the algae and the savings of carbon credits. So therefore, it is an economical model. It's not something that every brewery could do, but a major food company, a major beverage company, ethanol, oil and gas, they have a lot of money and they have a lot of CO2. So we're pitching them as we're a sustainable solution that actually provides a return on their investment.
Well, thank you for that. And then if we look at the 3 divisions that you presented here, the Pond Carbon, Pond Naturals, and Pond Biotech, and may I be the devil's advocate and ask you, they are all included in the platform offer overview, if I express myself a little bit, well, let's say rough. And obviously one can see the synergies, but do you really need all those 3?
Yes, I mean, they're really all part of Pond Technologies Holdings Inc., which is the parent company. So the Pond Carbon and the Pond Naturals really are the 2 main. I think at some point the Pond Biotech, again, if a license is sold off to a company with exclusivity, it's basically sold to that company. So Pond Biotech fell in our lap. It's not really our focus, but it is a nice to have, and it'll probably be sold, spun off, or licensed. So you really are left with the technology where you're getting revenue, and Pond Naturals selling algae. So that's the business.
Biotech is more or less the icing of the cake in that respect.
Sure, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we look at the customers and the market here, my first question is really the process and the timeline of a sale, and if you can give us in the market a feel for, does it take 12 months, 12 minutes? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but then again, you need to find a company and persuade them and find the right people.
Sure. Well, we're quite far down the path on that. Again, we have procured, and we've already got a plant up and running in Vancouver, and we have the large scale demonstration plant connected to Stack Gas at St. Mary's. So we have 2 actual algae production facilities, that are pond controlled, operating right now. And we're constantly updating that tech, putting in new lights, new systems, automating that, and fine-tuning the growth. So when customers come and tour those facilities, that's a lot quicker than before when we didn't have those operations. So now we have customers touring through the facility. They can visually see it. It's connected to StatCast. Oh, and here's the algae, and we show them the algae that we just grew. So I think that is really our best foot forward in terms of how we're now getting clients to move forward.
12 months from now, if you get the same question, it will probably be a much quicker process.
Yes, I believe so, and I would be hopeful in saying that 12 months from now we have a number of plants under construction and or in the works, with companies that are actively looking to reduce their carbon and get a return on equity in the algae production.
And the length of a contract, because you're mentioning that you're selling the equipment and you have some sort of license. How shall we understand it when you announce a contract? Are they for a year, are they for a quarter, or are they for 10 years?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've been asked that before. So the license is to access the technology, and the building of the plant would be probably a 40-year shelf life on the plant, and the royalty is in perpetuity for the life of the plant. So again, it's 100% margin coming in the door, all cash for the license fee. We're then building the plant over 12 months, 18 months, depending on the complexity or the size of the plant. And that is significant revenue. So out of that, $20-25 million plant, you've got at least half of that coming to Pond in terms of lights, tanks, engineering services, construction services, software, all of the sensors, the controls. Those are all delivered and installed by the Pond team. And then the royalty is that for the 5,000 or 10,000 tons of algae that plant produces, we receive, and it's negotiable, 3 to 5% royalty in perpetuity for the life of the plant. So that's where you're constantly bringing new plants on board, and then every plant is still paying almost like a trailer fee to the company, which helps bring in ongoing revenue.
Interesting. So very sticky business then.
Yes. Right.
And what would be the next announcement from Pond Technology here? Or maybe let me rephrase it and ask you like this. You mentioned lumpy quarters. What do you want us to look for when you announce something? Any key metrics, and is it sales or is it something else?
No, I think it's just an ongoing process where we are as I said, in discussions with a number of companies that are interested in Pond's technology, and our goal is to move them forward to either that smaller scalable plant that leads to greater plants, and or someone that is quite interested, and again we're in a number of discussions with companies. So I can't mention any announcements. Obviously you have to wait until we announce them, but that's really where we are. We're in the entering commercialization.
But basically, what one should be expecting would be announcements of contracts, deals with new clients and existing clients going forward.
Correct. Yeah.
And
that's the business model.
And the important thing there for me, my takeaway would be that it seems to be extremely sticky business in a no-brainer solution. But that's my opinion. You don't have to vouch for that.
And I think there's some FOMO. I think if one food company builds a plant, others will follow. So you have other companies watching what they're doing and who's doing what to abate their carbon and so on and so forth. So yeah, I definitely think that there's there's a green future ahead, as I think we're definitely part of the solution of carbon sequestration and utilization going forward. Yeah.
To be number one, but you have to do the work for everyone else. So yes,
that's true.
I see your point there. Well,
and that's been the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But Grant, thank you. Good luck. It's very interesting. And if people have any further questions, they will go to your eminent webpage, I take it?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. You can send any questions to info@pondtech.com, and we'll get back to you. We can set up conference calls, whatever anyone is interested in. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. It was truly an honor and a pleasure, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Och till alla er som har tittat så tackar vi för det och välkomnar er till nästa sändning. Då kommer vi att prata om guld och cybersäkerhet. Och det gör vi nästa tisdag den 25 och då börjar sändningen klockan 16:00 svensk tid. Tack ska ni ha, på återseende. Hej!